presenting virtually, and it seems like things are not working the way we want them to. So we'll go ahead and start. We're going to be starting with Doug Lingle from Infobase. Doug, you want to come up here? Sure. All right. Super. And the clicker is right over there, right on the table.
All right, so I brought up this screen for you all. Most of you probably say, who the heck is Infobase? Well, Infobase is quite a bit of different products. So we're not just streaming video, which would be films on demand, as many of you would know. But I looked at all the BLC schools, and these are some of the products that some of the schools subscribe to. So we're also fax and file with several different databases below that. Pulling the Nation is a new company that we purchased last summer. Blooms is a literary product. And we also still print one actual physical product, and that's the World Almanac, which I'm sure you've all seen in your bookstores. But also what's important about this screen, with the exception of the World Almanac, is that even with databases, accessibility is important in those as well. When there's a lot of text-based, we offer read-aloud functions in there. We've incorporated a lot of video into our databases, so that has the captioning. So I just wanted to point out, one, who we are, and we take captioning very seriously. I started with the company back in 2006, and we were still doing VHS and DVD, and we're just starting to dabble into streaming video for individual titles. Around that time, I want to say 2005, the state of California, or specifically the community colleges in California, were sued. There was a lawsuit in action because there were students who could not, the products weren't captioned. So we started getting calls in 2006. I guess there was some grant money available to the community colleges to caption the content. So we would write a permission letter for them to go out and caption the videos that they had, because literally they could not purchase any content going forward that was not captioned. And any content that they did show had to be captioned. So that was that grant money used to have that captioned. We still work very heavily with CCLC, the Community College Library Consortium in California. And we developed a special closed caption collection for them in 2011 when we went to a subscription streaming collection. We had really two platforms. We had one collection that had a whole bunch of video content. Some was captioned, much of it was not. Again, it was about 2011. And Gallaudet University down in DC, also a big school for the hearing impaired and the deaf. They subscribed to this unique closed caption collection. Everything was 100% closed caption, so there was no barrier for them to purchase that. Last fall, just before ALA bid winter, CCLC, again, this Community College Consortium in California, did an audit of our product. And they subscribed to what's called our Master Academic Collection, which is about 22,000 videos. And they found about 90% compliance to closed captioning. So we kind of fell behind the mark a little bit. They gave us those titles that they found that were not captioned. We immediately turned that around and got back up to the standards that they needed to be at. I did my own personal audit on April 6th, as you can see up there, but what I audited was all of our collections. So we not just have the Master Academic, we have nursing, allied health, a variety of different collections. So it accounts for about 31,000 videos. What I did not audit was our newer feature film collection. It's 20th Century Fox content. I did not audit that. On the Films on Demand platform, colleges and universities can upload their own content, so student-generated content, faculty-generated content. I did not audit that. And you can also connect college YouTube channels to the Films on Demand platform. That was not audited. I just audited our licensed material. So what I found was, just at a quick glance, 28,000 of those titles, or about 90% of that collection, was captioned. So then I looked at it even further and I said, well, of those, of those 3,000 titles, what's going on? And this is kind of what CCLC did on our behalf. So there are roughly, is that about 1,200 titles, 1,300 titles that have subtitles. We have a big world language collection, so it's Spanish, French, German, you name it. And all those are in that native language, but we provide the actual subtitling. It's a little different. It's burned into the video. It's not an overlay like a closed caption is. And then we also have a world cinema collection, which are feature films from a variety of countries around the world. So that eliminated quite a few titles. Then we have an archival collection, which is free. About a third of that is silent. So the example there is 1915 California Exposition. It's a silent movie clip, so that's not going to be captioned. There's a lot of that in that collection, because that goes back to the late 1800s, early 1900s. There are a handful of titles that are concerts that are not captioned. We have 5 silent films and 115 Spanish films. So all said and done, that leaves 446 titles, or about 1.5% of the total titles that are not captioned. Of those 446, there's a reason why, and I don't know why they weren't captioned, but I turned that over to our IT folks and said, hey, listen, you need to get these titles captioned. And it ends up being most of those are in our nursing collection. Somehow those nursing titles are never captioned. I don't know, but so that's in the process. I did this April 6th. It's been 3 weeks later. I haven't checked, but I'm assuming that they're probably captioned or close to it. We have a workflow, like a lot of companies do, to track content. We bring in content nightly to the platform. Overall, over the course of a year, we bring in somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 titles, and they go through this workflow. A title comes in to us from a producer. We not only take that full video, which in many cases are 30, 40, 50 minutes long, but we break them down into smaller, usable clips that the professors like to use in Canvas or Blackboard. So we segment it. Then it goes out and gets captioned, and the transcripts are also done at the same time. So that's all followed through this workflow that we have. I know it's hard to see, but it's just an example of what a title goes through. Then we have a content management system where it takes, and you'll see the yellow boxes, if the title's been captioned and all the different rights that are assigned to it. And it goes up onto the platform. So this is, I think, from Boston College. They're a subscriber with us, and this is their homepage. They have 28,000 titles, so they have most of our content. Some of you here have individual titles, but the experience is the same. Whether it's 10, 20,000 titles or a handful of titles, what you see here will be the same for any person that has our content. This is a screen when you come to a video that you want to play. I don't know if this has a pointer on or not, but you'll see highlighted up there, it says transcripts in the upper right. So when you come to a platform, you've got the closed caption button and the transcript button up there, and that's how you can find and turn these features on. And there's a blow up of the box. So if you hit the closed caption, you can either turn it off or you can play it in English. In the admin portal, the admin on record can go and change the settings for captioning and transcripts. So you just go to account settings, go to platform preferences, and you can come in here and change the font size, the font itself, and the color and background. Now, some colleges will default this to on, so when the person goes and plays a video, the captioning will play right away. The user, if they create a login account, can override the settings that the university has done. But we find that most people will turn that on as default, and then they just go in where I showed you on this page and just hit the off if they don't want to see that play. Again, along with the captioning that you see there on the video screen, to the right you can see the transcript. It's an interactive transcript. You can go in there, you can search for any key term, it'll jump you right to that part of the video. It's also printable, and you can save it to a PDF or whatever you want to do with that. And you can also do a search across all videos by transcript if you like. Now, we are, like you've heard this WCAG come up from everybody today, we are almost AA compliant. And these are the different levels that are available. We fall short in a couple areas, I'll admit, sorry. But by July of 2018, we plan to be 100% AA compliant. We see bids, state bids, come through all the time now, and AA compliancy is a mandate. There's no getting around that. We also have, this is also requested quite frequently from us, it's what's called a VPAT, and it ties into your 508 compliance. And a new version was just issued recently, so we had to go back and redo it. It's a lot more detailed information that they need. How many here are familiar with the VPAT? Pretty much everybody. Yeah. So it's a pretty involved form that we fill out, and it's posted on our websites, so this can be downloaded anytime, or you can call up your sales rep and request that. So we just updated this on March 23rd of last month. And then we also have an ADA usability statement, which also we have in our help section. But we take it seriously. We've got several people who keep us on our toes and make sure that we meet the compliancy, and we're going to do everything we can to make you all happy. That's all I got. Who's next up? But thank you all.
Any questions for Doug as we're transitioning over?
I do have a
Yes.
question. This is maybe more for everybody, so we can save it to the end, but, so when you are, I know this isn't probably you, but when you're acquiring content and this comes up, are most filmmakers or people you're getting content from providing things already with the captions, or is this often a painful discussion that you have with them?
It's something that we just assume to do.
Okay.
Yeah, in most cases, we don't get caption content or the transcripts. So it takes us probably somewhere, depending on how much content we ingest at one time, it can take anywhere from 5 days to 2 weeks to get the material captioned and have the transcripts provided. In most cases, we don't get it. We deal with over 1,000 different producers. Many of them are pretty small, so no, we don't. BBC, PBS, yeah, maybe we do, but in most cases, not so.
Okay, so next up is Shannon Spurlock with Canopy. Shannon is on speakerphone on my cell phone, so I'm going to hold her up to the microphone, and we'll see how it goes. Shannon, can you hear me? All right, try it again, Shannon.
I said, can everyone hear me? I just want to do a test before starting off.
I got some mixed responses. One more time.
That was good.
Okay. Maybe I'll just try to talk louder, but can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I think I'm dialing in where my cell phone speaker is, so I think we're good. We can head off.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, James, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to join this conversation for accessibility on streaming media. Sorry to not be there in person, but thanks for organizing the virtual attendance. Today I'm sharing with you Canopy's accessibility mission, our priorities including the standard technology features and some exciting new advancements that we have, as well as the future of accessibility on our platform. So Canopy is fully committed to making our own websites usable by all people, whatever their abilities or disabilities, and meeting ADA and other compliance standards. Our filmmakers share important stories and messages in their films, and our mission is to broadcast these as broadly as possible. So with that being said, let's start at the basics. Although captions and transcripts have been a key part of accessibility for years, it is still an ongoing topic. One patient recently wrote into Canopy, "The feature I captions and subtitles. At Canopy, the majority of our films have captions and transcripts, and a portion of our films also have multi-language captions, including French, Spanish, Italian, etc. As you can see here on our video page, it is simple to access and enable both the captions and transcripts. Specifically for this film, Dior and I, it has equipped with English captions and French captions, but you just click the CC button when the video player is playing and select the transcript button when the video player is playing. Now, Canopy was also the first educational streaming platform to offer in-platform caption requests for any film. I'm excited to say we will be needing this feature shortly. So before the end of the year, we will have our entire catalog captions with the transcripts, of course, and we will only be adding content that adheres to having the captions prior to launching on Canopy. Additionally, screen reader technology is a key component of accessibility for the hearing impaired. Canopy's website and video player works with screen reader technologies on desktop browsers as well as iOS and Android devices. And a few years ago, we worked with Syracuse.
Shannon, hold on one sec. You cut out for a second. Hold on. Try it again.
This feature enables users to use keyboard rather than the mouse to control the video player and the experience. Keyboard navigation is supported for all browsers, and our players allow users to tab into the player from elsewhere on the web page or browser. So we're compatible with JAWS and many other screen reading technologies as well. Those are things that we've been doing for quite a long time. And advance our accessibility features. So one pretty hot topic at this time in accessibility is audio descriptions, which are still considered a newer element of accessibility in educational streaming platforms as well as commercial ones. The audio description project deems Netflix as the dominant provider of audio described content, still with only about 900 episodes in their entire catalog audio described. So as we all know, we're still in the pretty early stages of these developments. But on that note, I'm excited to announce that Canopy has introduced our first film with an audio described version. So the film Spins and Balance from Music Film. And I'm going to just quickly exit my presentation and show you the film. So here it is on the Canopy platform, which many of you will have access to. I'll just play the film here.
Spins and Balance presents a large open room with tall windows. A woman is seated in the foreground.
And disability are two words that you don't often hear together. And if you do it, that covers your mouth. So I just give you a small preview, but you can see that we already do have that one film with audio descriptions and many more to come. Now, we're making huge strides in this area, but like I said, there is still a long way to go. The next focus of ours is on personalization tools for accessibility features. Canopy wants to make sure any user can personalize the resource to their disability requirements. So now a faculty or student can set up their profile to have captions enabled on their user settings in the iOS and Android apps, meaning that whenever they want to film on Canopy, it will always play with captions automatically on. This is intended to give users with disabilities the optimal experience with our solution and minimize any inconvenience. Now, this is our first release to personalize the user experience with accessibility features, but we are continuing to develop this over time to increase the optimal viewing experience. Now, accessibility standards change from time to time, and it is important that Canopy continues to improve our platform to meet the updated standards. And we're not just available on web browsers anymore, but also apps for iOS and Android, as well as Roku, Apple TV, Chromecast, and Amazon Amazon Fire tablet, which means we not only need to provide an accessible experience for the web, but the same experience for all other devices. So we are currently working with 2 third-party disability experts to continue to make enormous enhancements to never stop improving our level of compliance and continue our priority of accessibility. Canopy will continue to be at the forefront of accessibility standards as we are today. Thank you so much, and I don't know if I'll be able to hear any questions, but definitely willing to take some.
You know, I can repeat the questions back to you if you can't hear. Any questions for Shannon? Well, it looks like you're off the hook, Shannon.
Okay, perfect. If any do come up afterwards, I'm sure most of you have my email address, but I'll also be on the call from the end of the course.
Yeah, hold on 1 second, I do see one hand up.
Can she send a facsimile of this presentation?
The question was, can you send us a copy of your PowerPoint?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Shannon.
Wonderful.
Log out of my email before I forget. All right, I forget who was next on our program, Mike, or Pete? Actually, you know what? I know I just stood you up, I'm sorry. But Pete had, that's, he was just stretching. Pete Cianfetti from Alexandria Street, he has a PowerPoint already on the computer, so maybe we'll do that.
Yeah.
And then we'll switch over to Mike Eiler from Swank and do his presentation. Okay. Start your slideshow. If you want to stand up here, you can dance with the arrows or with
Okay, great, thanks. Well, hi from the function here. Well, thanks for having me. I am going to talk a little bit about the sort of the origins, the present, and where we're going. My role in the organization is in product development, so I'm more on the technology side than I think some of the presentations we've heard so far. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the insight to what goes on in the developer's mind when they're facing accessibility requirements. So we've been at this for a while. 2006, we launched 3D Video, and one of the first vendors to provide synchronized video transcripts in an academic setting. And it's true, and as it's been pointed out, that only with that transcript do you start to approach this AA requirement satisfaction. And what I find interesting, and I think people know this, but I think bears pointing out that it only takes one page on your site to not meet that level of standard for the site, for the platform to be considered non-compliant. So you can't really claim to be AA level if you have a single page. And that's where it becomes difficult when you have a large and quickly growing collection. What kind of investment do you have to make to kind of make sure every page? I'm happy to say that with the video transcripts, we get there. Like we saw from Films on Demand, we're not at 100%, and there's a number of videos for which the same categories apply. There are silent film, some foreign language films that may have subtitles already. We have music performances. But our goal is also to get to that 100% transcription. And what's more important too is that we're trying to do that as part of the workflow process. So it used to be that we would not launch a video without the transcript. But then there was a lot of the films that we were launching, some of them news-oriented, for example, where launching them quickly became also important. So there was a period of time where we'd have to catch up with a transcript to make it accessible. But we now have put together a program where within that sort of 72 hours that it often takes for our video to move through and get published online, that process will include the transcript now. So there'll be less of a gap for new content. So we have about 54,000 transcribed videos and growing, and and like I say, it's not 100%, but it's still one of the largest collections of transcribed video available. And as I mentioned, the faster turnaround and enhanced accessibility is something I also want to talk about. So, but before I go there, I want to sort of tell a little story about what it's like for the developers. And I've been a developer of websites going back in previous parts of my career. I'm more in the management now, so they don't want me to do any development, but I still do once in a while. don't tell them about it. But anyways, it was always the case where the first websites I would build, we didn't even know what accessibility was, right? We didn't do it until later that we became aware of those requirements. And then the browser standards and the HTML itself, of course, moved along and made that easier for us. And then the tools have gotten a lot better. Making accessible websites isn't that complicated anymore. But nevertheless, throughout that period of history, we would often build a site and then come back to it later, and we'd study its accessibility as a separate step, and then fix whatever defects that we would find. Now it seemed like an expensive process. The costs, we kind of touched a little bit on how expensive accessibility can be. And it requires a level of investment in both time and money. That ends up, you have to also try and make your products affordable. You have to say, what level of accessibility can we afford and make the product still affordable? And then, then we get pushback about, of course we can't acquire your content if it's not accessible. And I think what's interesting, and maybe most of you also know this, is that I heard the recommendation that your vendors really have to have the heat turned on them to make sure they're taking accessibility seriously. And in a situation where there's choice, right, you're obliged, you, the purchaser, I guess, are obliged to choose the accessible option. So if there's a situation where we're not one of those options, then that's, of course, it's bad news for us because, we might not get selected, but it's even worse for you because you're the one that's on the legal hook for this, right? So why am I bringing this up now? In a conversation with a developer on this project I'm working on, brand new project, I've got 5 developers on it, and what's interesting is they're from all over the world. I've got a person from Russia, a person from the United Kingdom, 2 people from Shanghai, and 1 person from the United States. And I point that out because there's kind of a different perspective on the importance of accessibility as you come across people from these different cultures, I find anyways. And so you kind of have to bring everybody up to the same level of understanding. And so that's one of my jobs, kind of being in the management, I have to make sure all these developers are with the program in terms of how important accessibility is. Now, we put these developers under a lot of pressure. If you're involved in agile software development, there's releases of your platform coming out every 2 weeks, and you're trying to squeeze a lot of functionality or other things into these 2-week cycles. And these people on the team, they're, our ambitions are always outweighing our resources, right? So we ask them to do a lot very quickly. And so I was in a discussion with one of the developers, who happened to be one of the guys from Shanghai, and he was saying, well, Pete, I can deliver what you want, but I'll have to come back to the accessibility part. I'm like, wait a minute, no. It's always more expensive to come back to it than it is to do it. And I said, why can't we just, what I would like, and all the other developers on the team kind of got into this, is let's take care of this as we go, right? And there are tools that make this simple. And he still felt like I had turned the screws a little too tight on it. And I said, well, tell you what, let's take away some of the features. I don't want to deliver a site without full AA level accessibility. It just doesn't make sense. So anyways, that conversation concluded in my favor. And I'm going to show you what we're doing here, actually. So any people from the company DayCube here, I want to give a shout out to them, because they provide some tools that, if you don't know about, I suggest you look into this tool called Axe. Now, this is the first tool like this, but what's cool about this tool is it actually fits into the code. So in other tools that are like this, they're like browser plugins, and you can say they'll read your page and report on the defects, but they're effectively still outside the application. They provide a tool. What's going on here, if you can't read this, is that if we're in a development mode, we have something called Axe enabled. Axe is the name of the tool. And then Axe actually runs on the code while the site's running. All right? And so what you end up getting is you open up your browser console, you're getting a report, the developer's getting a report of any accessibility feature that's not satisfied. Now, these tools can't test for everything. There's a lot of things that actually don't have anything to do with the browser markup. They can see the markup and it can report what's going on with that. But certainly, when you get your markup wrong, you certainly have to fix that too. So there's still accessibility tests you'll have to do on top of this with humans and other tools like Testing with Jaws. So that's, we've got great, I think we have great accessibility on the video player. And we don't treat it so much as just a requirement to meet the AA standards. Things like having alternative text for all of your images seems like a no-brainer. But really what we were striving for is, does that text mean the right thing to you? Right? It's not just, you can run a tool like this and say, yes, there's text, but it can't tell you if this text is actually, so it's kind of a usability issue as much as it is accessibility, right? So we ran we got up to what we thought was a AA compliance. And then we had an independent review with experts in the field saying, can you actually use this with the way with what we provide? And that, of course, brought back a number of issues that we had to come up to speed on and fix, but we got that. So there's been a couple of previous speakers talking about the audio description, and this is a question we get. Do we support them? And currently we don't have any video with audio description, but I looked into what it would take to get them. And with 60, 70,000 videos, adding audio descriptions to those becomes kind of a, what does it cost? And some of the costs I've heard quoted are anywhere between $12 and $75 a minute to get audio descriptions, because they're professionally done, and when they're done professionally, they're really cool. They capture, not, obviously you talk about a documentary, and some of them, the editing in these documentaries, they're like bang, 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 they're really fast cuts. And so you can't really describe what's going on, but you can stand back and say, all right, well, this is it's a city scene, and the filmmaker is cutting from all these different scenes. But anyways, I've looked at what can we do to help automate this. As it turned out, when we launched transcriptions, it was initially a discoverability agenda that got us going there, right? Making the videos discoverable. But of course, it came with the bonus of being also an accessibility feature. So I'm in that kind of same space now with audio descriptions. And so you may be aware that there's a lot of image recognition technologies that are out there running in the cloud. And Amazon and Google both have tools that allow this. So you can take a frame grab, however frequently you think you need to, every 5 seconds, let's say, and then send it to one of these tools and ask it to tell you what it sees. And then it'll punch out the words that it sees. And it kind of does this with a level of confidence. He says, I think this is whatever, I see a car, and I'm 90% confident that that's a car. Sometimes it's not so confident it's a car, it might say vehicle, and it'll give you a little more confidence that it's a vehicle. And when this works well, it's really impressive. But the average picture that I've sent through this process, I'm wowed maybe 5% of the time. Maybe 50% of the time I said, yeah, you kind of get what's going on. But when it goes wrong, it can be really bad. So embarrassingly bad, you have to wonder whether the users would accept it. So I'd be interested in people's, these things will obviously get better over time. But